Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of JourneyCast. My name is Levi.
I am Alicia.
And today we have with us Chris Chase.
Hi, everybody.
From Ontario, Canada.
Ontario, Canada.
What part of Ontario are you from?
I'm from Oshawa, which is a suburb of the Greater Toronto area. Well, nice. Just outside of the Greater Toronto area, but we claim it, so that just makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Nice.
You're rocking the YXH merch.
Yes. I am. I am wearing the sweatshirt now, and I have the T-shirt on for later on. Like I'm like once
you're fully indoctrinated.
Yeah, I am. Once you've gone somewhere twice in a row, you pretty well are grafted into family, or like you kind of force yourself into that way. And so it only makes sense to dress like how your family dresses.
Right. Yeah.
Merch on for sure. And the baby blue on the back is like it's mint.
One of us now.
Mm-hmm. One of us.
I know. One of us.
Yeah, thanks for coming back again. We didn't get a chance to talk with you last year. You had a lot on your plate last year. You were in charge of all the speaking last year, so and it was kind of short notice.
Yeah, because there was somebody who was, for all intents and purposes, it might have been Pastor Jesse, but somebody was on deck to come. Mm-hmm. They weren't able to come, and then they were sort of a scramble for who they can ask. Mm-hmm. And my friend Jeff Goring recommended me to Pastor Aaron, and Pastor Aaron knew me from a mutual friend of ours by the name of Matt Joy, who he knows from Newfoundland, and Matt gave a good recommendation. And then I think in the span of like 10 days, I was on a plane to Regina.
Oh, right.
Because WestJet went on strike the day before I was supposed to fly out, so we weren't able to do that. And so I flew to Regina. Drove 4.5 hours with somebody who I'd never met before, which is a miracle.
New friend.
But Dale is now my buddy, who came from Calgary this time, and we were able to hopefully kind of, for our first time conference, move things along and sort of help set a template. And I say we, not just myself, but everybody who was involved, from the organization to the participation to the students who were there, move things along to where we are a year later.
Yeah. No, and we're glad to have you back because it was great. A great word last year. So
I appreciate that.
I don't know if you're going to answer this question tonight, but it's been bothering me deeply, and so I have to ask. I need to finish the story. Did you find your car?
Oh yeah. So I know there was a student who had their hand up. For a long time.
Yeah.
And I had already felt like we were moving late because of all the clapping stuff. So I was like, I can't. But I knew that the question he was wanted to ask was, did I find the car? Did the car get back? So long story short, actually my friend Jeff Goring, who I mentioned earlier, his brother actually saw our car. He saw somebody driving the car. So he calls me one day because we had an air tag in the cars, like I said yesterday, and
so
we were able to track, so we can track where it was. And so we knew the city that it was in. It's not the sort of city where you're going to kind of roll up and try to find your car again. It's just not that sort of town.
Oh, okay.
It's not safe to do that.
It's just sort of like there's no winning in it. It's like, hey, give me back my car. No. All right, cool. Right. And so he went and he found it. And so I can't remember if one day I kind of sat in a parking lot and kind of waited around, didn't see anything. And then we got a phone call from the police a couple of weeks later. And they're like, yeah, it's an impound lot in Mississauga, which is another township near the airport, about 30, 45 minutes from where it was seen, which is another 20 minutes from where we live. But by that point, we already had a new car. It was already emptied out. So it's just an impound lot. So there's no like, yay, redemption story, we got the car back. It's sort of like, it's now scrap metal. But they found the car, but we did not get the car back. We ended up getting a new car. And
like insurance would cover that.
Yeah, insurance covered it. And then the only catch is that I'm not allowed to have a push key start car.
I believe that. Yeah.
Ever again. That was one caveat that Rebecca said. Like we're not having a push key, so I have to have an old school.
Oh man.
Yeah, but the car did get found. Yeah, and
not the redemption story I wanted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's kind of why I didn't share it either, because now like there's really no hope in that. Like let's bring Boydo and the band back out to sing about this now. There's nothing. There's no altar call moment in that story.
And I think there's a lesson to learn from that. Sometimes it's not always a happy ending in like a movie,
Life is way more,
that's
and then your car ended up in a parking lot, in an impound lot, than it is. And then the car was there. And also, your grandmother, who you never met before, also found the car for you. Like none of those things actually happen. There's no script like that. More often than not, it's your car's in an impound lot. You got to get a new car, and you continue on with life that way.
So here's kind of a segue to what we want to talk about. Have you forgiven this thief?
Yeah. Like, yeah. No, it's like, I was more.
It just turned your world upside down a little bit, right?
I was one of those things where like I was more upset because the stuff that we lost in the car, and more upset with myself because I was the one who left the stuff in the car.
Right.
So I wasn't really mad at the thief. In an ironic way, for some reason they felt like they needed my car. Now I'm pretty certain it was for illegal activity, but like if we didn't have, and this is like, these teenagers are like, why are we talking about insurance? Like, why is that important? But for those of us who are adults who are either in the room or watching this later or listening to this, we understand the importance of it. Once insurance said we were going to cover the car, I didn't care anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, whatever. Yeah. I'm just more disappointed that the stuff that my son lost, stuff that my daughter lost, like that stuff that and the stuff that can't be replaced.
Yeah.
But I was more, and still am in some respects, upset with me because I was careless.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many, like, I'll be able to kind of teach you that I move around a lot, so forgive me.
Worries. Move it as you need to.
And I'm also mindful, like I'm watching my voice on the second monitor, and I'm like, when it peaks, I'm like, oh, it's because I'm doing this.
Yeah.
The podcast for me. I'm also mindful of like, there's so many lanes and stories I can tell from that.
Yeah.
Right. And the lessons there, like anybody who wants to be a speaker one day, there's so many stories, there's so many nuggets of stories.
Your mind right away is like, how can I use this as an analogy?
Yeah. Like that's just it's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
You can never sort of be in a moment where you're always like, oh, that's a good
little tidbit. I'll save this for later.
So what happened to you? Okay, great. Yeah.
So this is my youth pastor brain. Then as you're talking, I'm like, oh, this is where we need to start is self-forgiveness.
Yes.
Because now
Right,
like there's the path I'm choosing.
Well, that's naturally what we do. We're sort of like, okay, so where's the lesson here? And then you're like, oh, okay, and you write that thing down. So like, and it's the analogy of you put a can in the middle. We're all going to see the same can, but from different angles. And so you're gonna see the ingredients, and I'm going to see the logo, and you're going to see
nutritional facts.
You're going to see the nutritional facts or the barcode code.
Yeah.
When we all combine that piece together, we all have the can. But until then, we're all sort of sharing different stories, but it's all the same can. So it's beautiful. Like I love that portion of it. And if I share that story 5 years from now, I'll have different perspective on it because I'm 5 or 4 years old or whatever it is, and have had different experience out of that. So it is what it is. But have I forgiven the person? For the most part, but mainly because we have another car. If we were stranded, if we were still carless, I don't know if I would have answered the same way.
There wasn't much of a reaction last night when you started talking about it until you mentioned the Jordans.
Yeah, nobody really cared about nobody really cared about like, oh, your car goes stolen, whatever. And the $1,000 shoes. Oh my gosh, like I feel so bad for him. And you should feel bad for me because
were they really $1,000 shoes? They were.
One of them on StockX is worth a lot of money. That
StockX, for those who don't know.
Yeah, StockX, for those who don't know, is an app. It's a website that kind of rates and sells shoes, and
it's like eBay for
running shoes.
Sneakerheads is what they call them. Yeah.
And so one of the shoes that I lost is probably worth $2,000, which is a really sick thing to say out loud.
Right.
And I recognize the vanity in that, and I recognize the maybe you should, and that's why I shouldn't care so much either, because like maybe I didn't need them. Right, so it's perspective. Like maybe I didn't need to.
There's a whole other sermon there.
Right, like that's just it's the painful thing of what we do. Like anything can become a sermon if you really work at it that way.
It's for family, you know.
See, and now my kids are at the age where they are aware. Like when they're 4 and 5, they don't know they're being sermon illustrations, and now, like Liam can go, "That's not what happened, Dad. Actually," like that's the stage where they are. But they know, any conversation could end up being. Like we're like stand-up comedians in some respects. Like anything can become a bit, anything can become a story. So you just got to be mindful of that. And they know, and they'll. But when I get it wrong, they are really quick to like out loud in a room say like you're lying.
That wasn't what I meant when I said that.
Yeah.
I look forward to those stories. We have our senior pastor talks about his kids all the time now. Yeah. And like they're usually sitting there, and so I'm like, how are they responding to this? How are they feeling?
And everyone in their row sitting with them, just like.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty embarrassing stories, and and now like his son just got married, and like now the new daughter-in-law already made one of the sermons. I'm like, this is going great, more content.
That's like content is king, I guess, right? And so, but hopefully, the content that is shared is it adds to it adds to the message and the lesson. So if the teaching is just the stories, right, then the content isn't helpful. Yeah, it's a memorable story, but it's not really helping anything. It's got to be something that either leads into the scripture or leads out of the scripture that helps the scripture become alive.
Yeah.
So the hope is that if years from now, somebody just randomly remembers, I remember this time this guy talked about this car getting stolen. And the reason why he talked about that is because of this hard time he went in his life, because storms happened, because there's time that Jesus, I might not know the scripture, but Jesus was in a boat with his disciples. And right, so it's
I should go look that up and read that.
Right, yeah.
Oh, hey, I'm reading this now. Oh, I should read this whole gospel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It leads into something as opposed to just, if it's just a story, then I wasted their time I wasted their time, essentially.
You have an acronym, or not an acronym, like a few words. So I spoke recently at our youth group. I rarely speak.
The one time a year.
Yeah, the one time a year. I was talking about this with Chris earlier. I told him of my embarrassing slip.
You did.
Yeah. It was a good one.
Yeah,
I wish he had kind of lived in that for a little bit, but he didn't.
No, I moved on. But I went to Alicia. I'm like, how do you construct a sermon? You have hook,
book,
look, and
you
took.
know this one.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. Bible school.
Oh yes, hook, book, look, and took. That's classic.
Yeah.
That is that. Yeah.
Okay, so this is pretty well known, like Bible school.
I would imagine so.
Okay.
Yeah. Central principles of teaching.
Yes.
Yeah. Like that's still a principle that I
came up with that.
Like principle that I still use like every night again. The hook, book, look, and took.
Yeah.
Mine is I use keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
It's the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Because I naturally, I'm an outside processor, and so I will kind of overcomplicate things that don't.
Yeah, that was my concern. I'm like, I feel like I just don't want to ramble on right now. I don't want to waste anyone's time. I want to keep it concise and condense. But then it ends up being like 10 or 15 minutes long. I'm like, okay, maybe I can expand on some things here.
You just started and you're done. You need to add a little bit more meat to that thing.
A little more. We wanted to talk a little bit about forgiveness. You spoke about this afternoon at our session. Why is forgiveness important? Why does it matter? Why do I need to forgive people?
Because, and this is going to sound so trite, so forgive me, but life is too short to be bitter. Life is sometimes more fun when you're bitter, but it's too short to be bitter, right? And the people who we don't forgive, for the most part, they have no clue that we haven't forgiven them.
Yeah.
And so we're holding on to this bitterness or this anger or this hurt at a person who has no clue, right? And then there's some people who know that they've hurt us and they're not going to change. They're not going to say sorry. They're never going to say sorry.
What's that C.S. Lewis? Is it C.S. Lewis quote? Something about like not forgiving someone is like putting poison in a drink and then drinking it yourself and expecting it to affect
the other person to die.
Yeah.
But that's the natural. For some reason, we think like this is going to make this will show them.
Yeah.
This will show them, and it's like no, they have no clue.
No idea.
And I'm mindful that there are some issues that are not just relational. We had a misunderstanding. There are some when we think of abuses and things of that nature that are way more fraught and require much more nuance. So I'm mindful of that. That's not saying like if you've been accosted physically, just forgive them and let that go. Like there's some things that require along with your own work.
And sometimes there needs to be some separation too.
There needs to be separation. Yeah. There needs to be counsel.
Boundaries are a great thing.
All those sort of things. Those are all.
Forgiveness doesn't mean.
Doesn't mean forgetting, just kind of like going on.
Yeah, there can still be consequences, but sometimes that's not always up to you. But part of that can be, okay, I'm just going to remove myself from your, not that, like to try and get back, but it's just, especially if that person is not safe to be around, depending on the situation, right? I know of people that are like, they've tried with people in their life to make it work. They're difficult to get along with. They've tried to, but they're like, you know what? I just need some space.
The mature thing is to kind of give, you give it the old college try. And then you're like, you know what? The wise thing, right? Like we're given wisdom for a reason.
But not going around and slandering their name or something or trying to get back at them or get revenge still.
Which is seems
so hard,
fun.
yeah.
It seems because you want
said
that.
a few times you're petty.
Someone said to me before we were leaving to go back to get change, whatever.
Yeah.
Like they appreciate that. Like I'm like that I say those sort of things because I'm like,
I think it's important to be honest about. Yeah,
like I wish I wasn't that way.
Yeah,
but like I said, like that's my own scars that I'm constantly having to release and give away.
Some self-awareness there, though. Right?
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. And it's and not for the sake of like if I'm saying that in front of people, but then when we're in the back room, I'm not that. Then it's not real. Like, but that's me consistently.
Or you are that, and you think it's a good quality.
Yeah, and I know it's like no, it's funny for the sake of like for communication, but it's not fun.
Right, of course.
Right, like it's actually being angry is exhausting. Holding anger is exhausting. It requires so much more work.
Yeah, it does.
And letting go, it's hard, but the long-term effects of that are so much better. Like I don't think she mind me telling the story. My mom, who is my queen, right? Like that's, North Star, like can't go wrong with mom that way. There were people in her life that like bitter against for years. And then when she just one day was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, it was like, where did my mom go? Who's this lady?
Oh, wow.
Oh, you're my mom. Because she just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was within our own family.
Yeah, wow.
And to see those relationships within our family go into reorder. They weren't what they were. They're better than what they were. Because my mom was like, I'm just not doing this anymore. And she just kind of just decided.
To let it go.
And this is a grown woman. This is not a teenager that's sitting in this room or somebody watching this on podcast listening to this. This is like a woman who's lived life and all that, has adult children and all this sort of stuff like that. And she's like, I'm just not doing this anymore. And going like, oh, that's my mom could have been this the entire time.
Wow.
But she did all this work kind of holding on to this stuff, thinking that it was hurting everybody else, but it wasn't. It was hurting
or there
her.
was some sort of self-righteousness, right? That, we're holding someone accountable for what they did wrong, and that makes us
better,
righteous, or better, or like, oh well, I know what was right and wrong in that situation, and I'm going to hold fast to this truth. But really, you're just holding on to something you don't need to hold on to,
and you're holding on. You're expecting somebody to one day receive you. You're praying for them, and then one day they go, you know what? I wronged them. I need to go apologize. Right? And you're waiting. You're standing at this door, and you're waiting for them to come. It's like that Amazon package is lost. It's never coming to your house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's better to kind of let it go and then be surprised if it ever does, but not expect for it to.
Right.
Wait for it.
Right. Like I had this when I was early in youth ministry, we had a leader who I inherited. And it was always fun when you go to a new church and you inherit a team. You're having to kind of like, this is weird sort of give and take of you're trying to win them over. They're trying to maintain what was there before.
Yeah.
Personalities are clashing. You're nice to it's a weird dating where we're like nice to each other, but we don't trust each other. That sort of thing. We had one leader that
everything's surface level.
Yeah, there's nothing depth. There's no depth.
Yeah.
And we had this one leader who, this person we didn't see eye to eye, and they were a really strong leader, really, really, really strong leader.
So valuable, but you're having a hard time.
I don't know if I would use the word valuable, but that's just me. Again, I'm petty. They were, but I didn't feel that at the time.
Right. Yeah.
And I was young in ministry, so I'm probably like 23, 24. So I don't know what to do.
Right.
My natural propensity would be to yell and whatever else, and that's not helpful to anything. No. And so I remember getting with one of our staff pastors. It was a larger church at the time, and this pastor was like, let's just pray about it. I'm like, okay, sure. So we pray about it, and then I just kind of forget about it. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to be supportive. I'm going to give this leader space. And then I forgot about this. And then one day we're having this response time in our youth room, and all the kids are kind of very similar to what we've been experiencing here on a smaller scale. Kids are praying, whatever else. And I'm kind of sitting on one of the chairs and observing and that sort of thing. And then this leader comes and sits down beside me. And this leader says, I need to apologize to you. And I'm like, my eyebrow goes, I'm like, excuse me? Right? They're like, I've been against your leadership. I've been working against your leadership, and I need to apologize. And the petty person in me wanted to be like, well, I know you've been working against my leadership. Let me count the ways. I've been actually keeping a note on my flip phone, because it was 2005 and there were flip phones at the time. It was not padded. And it's like I open it up and A.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was like, right?
That's how mad you are for your patience to just keep plugging it in.
A full-on text message. It takes 4 hours and costs 50 cents. Yeah. These kids have no idea.
Yeah, guys, texts used to cost money, just so you know.
Just
you
so
have to be careful with how many
it
texts
mattered,
you
yeah.
How
bad do I want to send
this?
this?
Was it per character, or was it per text?
It was per text. It was per text.
But there was only so many characters you could put in a text.
It was like the size of an original tweet. It was like 140 characters. So it was like you'd have to send like 15 text messages like, Mom, can you come pick me up at Gerald's house, because that sort of thing. And that was like $4.
Yeah.
But I was like,
off track.
But I was like, okay, thank you for that. Right? Because the natural propensity is to look at that person and go, you finally owned up to what you did.
Yeah.
You finally admitted your guilt.
Why didn't you do this?
Where was this before?
Months ago. Yeah.
You fake two-face, blah, 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 blah. That's the easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And now you've recognized that. I'm letting you go.
And then they leave, and then they're like, "This is what this person thought of me." And then suddenly they're angry and they're holding on to bitterness, and you're just kind of like you're playing catch with hate.
Yeah,
you're playing catch with anger, right? And it's this matzo ball that nobody wants to catch, but you're just doing that. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. Thank you, and let's just kind of move on from wherever we've been. And we were never buddies. We were never. But I'll tell you this, when our daughter was born, they were bringing gifts and food to our house, and we appreciated that. Yeah. When they were going through a rough time, we were there for them to the best of our ability. So it wasn't like we weren't going on vacations together, but we were also more than cordial. Peace. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's
I feel like I had something similar happen. There's I won't say who or what or how this happened, but that I had someone who...
He's talking about you.
It probably, yeah.
I had someone who had hurt me, and I hadn't seen them in a while, and we had this service at our church, and this person walked in because they were helping out that night, and I had found out they were going to be helping out an hour or two before, and I was like, oh, great, get to see them. All right, how am I going to act? How am I going to treat them? And as they're walking up, there's a group of us. We just finished sound check, and there's a group of us talking. And this person walks up, and they're like, "Hey," and I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna be nice." And so I was nice to them, and I was like, "Hey," and they're like, "Oh, what are you laughing about?" And I'm like, I tell them, and kind of try to include them, try to be nice, and then later on that evening, they called me over, like, "Hey, I'm sorry about that situation. I'm sorry how I handled that. That was wrong." And I think is because I chose to not be revengeful in that moment, that they're like, oh, hey, they're not holding this against me, but they have every right to. Maybe I should apologize.
And that takes, and to be fair to that person, it takes a lot to admit when you're wrong.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
I could tell it was hard for them. And so I was like, I just said that. I appreciate it.
And it's harder with the people who are closest to us. I can do that to one of you two, but I see you once a year.
Yep.
Right.
So I can be like, you know what? I'm sorry that I stepped on your. But if we're doing life together and we've gone into a pattern and a rhythm regularly, it's even harder to do that. Think about family, your kids, your spouse, your significant others. It's the closer in proximity you are to one another, the harder it is to.
And it's easier to want to ignore it.
It's kind of
let's not make a big
because
deal.
We have
this is how it is.
They always get mad at X, Y, or Z, and so it's easier to. But it's work to. It's work on both sides. It's work to say I forgive, even if nobody apologizes, and it's work to say I was wrong. Forgive me.
Because you're opening up yourself. You're being vulnerable, and you're hoping they're going to honor it.
And then there's also these moments too. And it's important to say this too. There's also moments where the right thing to do is to go to that person, especially if you're in close proximity. You go like, you know what? This actually hurt me, and it's that's where the wisdom and discernment comes in. I was sitting with I used to work at a Bible college for a number of years in Ontario, and we had students that we would do small groups with and mentoring with. And one student in particular, she's now a young adults pastor in another city in Ontario. And during the pandemic, there was a misunderstanding that I was in lead of, and it really hurt her. And I thought, well, I guess the relationship was done, whatever else it is, and fine. And I tried to make inroads, but I was just kind of fumbling the bag every single time. And so we were at an event, a conference, this past March. And I can same sort of idea, but I'm the one walking in, and I'm the one going like, oh no, this person's here, and I know this person doesn't like me, and I know that I've hurt them. I don't know how to be, and I'm the adult. We're both adults, but I'm the one who was the mentor, not the mentee. I should be the one who's going. But admittingly, I was a coward. I was like, I should have been the one to kind of go, hey friend, we're not in a good place. But I was like, hey,
it's easier to avoid.
I love your shoes, man. Like, you're great. Yeah. And so we made plans before they left. Let's grab breakfast at similar place, blah, blah, blah. And so we're sitting there, we're having breakfast. And before they're going to go visit their grandparents, whatever else is. And they said to me, you know, like, can we talk about the last 2 years? And I'm sitting there, and because of our, you know, this is like at this point a sibling in my life. Immediately, we're both weeping at the table. Wow! And that's not the story that I was telling Stephanie, but like this is like, and I had to go to this married and, you know, starting a family and doing ministry. I had to go like, I'm sorry. I was a coward. I am a coward. Please, would you forgive me?
Yeah.
But even if you don't forgive me, you need to know that I'm sorry. We're good. I forgive you. And just immediately, like, we're reordered. We're way better. So there's moments where there's moments where like it's all discernment, it's all relationship based, where you need to know like maybe the right thing is just to forgive and let it sit. Yeah. Sometimes I need to be the one who says, "Hey, this hurt me." Yeah. But it's all like it's relationship.
Sometimes people don't know that you've hurt them.
Exactly. Right? I find that's weird, right? Like if you like, and I think that's like if we're in a relationship, I know. Yeah. If we're not in a relationship, then I have no like. Yeah. What? Yeah, man, that didn't hurt you, but you're fine, man. You just stop being a baby. You don't know.
Some people are okay. Like, I mean, we joke around with our friends, right? There was a situation once where a student had made a joke with someone, and they thought it was fine, but the person was like, "I was not fine with that." Like, so, like, but you just have to be aware of that, right? Like, you just have to. You have to know someone well enough to know what's okay and what's not okay.
You made a joke about it, but I actually apologize to Levi all the time. So I mean, I'm a supervisor. I don't know. I don't know. I do all the time.
You're just hoping for like non-bad HR reports. You're kind of like,
no. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think it's important though, right? Like it's like even little things. Like I want him to enjoy his job, and like and like again, being a human being who's going through stressful experiences in youth ministry, like things come up, or like we'll miscommunicate or something, and so. I think it was about 5 years ago, someone gave me this piece of advice, and it's genuinely changed my life. It's so simple, but it just said, run towards your problems.
That's good.
So like, I tend to be this worrier who sits back and I always process or overthink things. And then I never act. Yeah. And so I have all these insurmountable problems that are getting worse with time. But then I was like, you know what, I'm going to try something different. And so like, I don't know, like Wade at work, we had this like tiny little miscommunication. And I was like, that's something that I would sit on for a long time that would eat at me. Right. Yeah. I'm like, no,
he hasn't thought about it.
No, he doesn't care. Right. It's just me. So then like, I was like, I felt so brave, right? Like my heart's pumping. This is the first time I'm trying this advice. Right. And I remember I'm like walking up and I'm like, hey, let's talk this out. And like, honestly, I think it like grew the friendship that we have because like anything, I'm like, I'm getting things over quick now. I'm getting good at it.
The issue that you need to face and need to deal with, like I found it's like once you handle it, you're like, oh, that was way easier than I was thinking about all these things that could happen.
Yeah.
That could have gone wrong.
But none of that happened.
No,
and it
it's
was
true.
way easier. Like the enemy wants you to overthink and overcomplicate things and be scared of confronting your issues. So you don't, and so then they become way worse.
Brene Brown talks about the story in your head, right? It's a story we tell ourselves. I talked about this, like, there's students here in the room. They've gone from paying attention to like being like, just answer our questions, please.
You can bring them up. Oh, there's so many.
We'll do that because like I can see them. I can see them fading.
This is great.
But like I tell Ellie all the time, like, how much of this is real and how much of this is something that you've told yourself?
Right. Yeah. Right.
How much of this is what really happened? How much of this is you've sat on this and now you've told yourself this and now you're...
Is this factual or is this just in your head?
Is this subjective? Is this an objective truth? Or is this sort of like you just are thinking this? And so when it comes to areas of forgiveness, because it's relational, and I might say something to you, and on the wrong day, wrong time, you hear it completely differently.
Totally.
And we misinterpret one another's, reaction times or words. And this is why guarding a relationship is so important, because if we have a relationship, then you can go like, what did you mean by that? And if I know you well, I can go, I know she doesn't mean any way to harm me. She doesn't mean any way to hurt me by asking that question. So she can ask that and I can respond to that and we're good. And we keep, but if you're nervous to ask and I'm nervous to be asked, then we sort of like continue to box things away. And then the blow up is over something that's so small and so minuscule. And then you can't put, like, I've had panic attacks over that. And it's like, panic attack over what? Something that I thought myself that another person had no clue about. And I'm like in a mental panic, tears in my eyes over something that which simply could have been like, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Or not necessarily
so simple.
And let me correct myself. Like, here's what I thought you meant. Because instead of me saying, what did you mean? And I'm pointing at you.
Here's how I heard that.
Here's how I heard that. And I'm putting it on me because maybe I'm the one who misinterpreted. Then you're like, actually, no, that's what I meant. Oh, okay. Well, then we have a different problem. But if immediately I'm pointing at you going, what did you mean when you said that? Well, your back goes up. Or depending on your personality, you shrink down. And I'm either the victim or now I'm the aggressor. I've heard that all sort of things.
It's similar advice when how to deal with someone who's just being rude to you. Just be like, sorry, what did you say? Can you say that again? What do you mean? I don't understand.
Is that why you say that to me? I'm joking.
No.
Guys, are we doing counseling right now? Is this happening? Like staff counseling? It's happening right now? It's fantastic.
I am jealous of you guys though in all of your like apology stories, because I think the greatest woundings in my life I will never ever get an apology for. And it's tough, right? Like that's where you talked about like the work we have to put in, because my life from like there's so much in my life where I've gone through like very, very painful things, and I have to put in that work to be okay, and to work on the forgiveness and to do that on my end, right? And to be okay not getting an apology that, are we running out of time?
No, I was just checking where we're at. Yeah.
I think a lot of us have more lives like that where we have things that have happened to us and we haven't got apologies, and we probably never will get apologies for, which is... And that's the hard part, because we talked about that a little bit when we were in the green room. Like we are so justice focused and modern day justice focused.
Yep.
Yeah, what did Davin say? He said,
oh my gosh,
a word,
so good.
The Old Testament word they used for justice in the Old Testament. Do you know about this?
Putting back in its rightful place.
Yeah, putting things back in its rightful place the way it was, and like restoring it.
Yeah, it's less about justice in terms of punitive retribution. It was more about putting things back in their rightful place.
In the modern context, justice is also about the punishment. So when we think of justice, we also think of I need to punish you.
But that's not what it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So we were so that's a cool thing. I know we're gonna get to the question in a second, but the cool thing about
Davin
like
on
being
that. Look into that. I don't know. Yeah.
Being in community is like I sit down and go, guys, I'm talking about this, and then we have this whole conversation about it, and we're learning from each other about what different ways of how forgiveness works. And it's just the idea of being in community is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking about conflict, Are you on Kendrick or Drake's side of the beef?
And all the ears start to perk up. All the kids care now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will.
I don't even know. I've just heard about the beef. I know.
Okay, so I will try to be as succinct and brief as possible because somebody could be like, "How dare they have a Christian podcast and talk about non-Christian rap music? Also, how can they talk about rap music? How come they're not talking about Taylor Swift, who also isn't a Christian but also sings songs that I really like and they talk to my heart?" Anyhow, so I'll try to be as succinct as possible because I legitimately could spend like 5 hours on this topic. Because they have been taking shots at one another for
in their music
for the better part of 10 years, and they have not seen eye to eye on a number of issues, and it came to a head legitimately. This has all happened within the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Is it just about themselves or about their views on culture or social issues?
It's too dense to talk about here.
Oh wow!
Because there's a lot of paper there.
There's a lot here.
Ultimately, I from a musical perspective, I am a child of the 80s, so I grew up with hip hop. Hip hop is 50 years old. I am not 50, but not that far off. And so I've grown up with the music and the culture, and so I have an affinity and a love for all types of rap music. So I'm a fan of both of their musical abilities, not necessarily always their content, if that makes any sense. But in this case, Kendrick washed them. It was a wash. It was a complete wash. If you're a Drake fan, you probably don't think that. You're wrong. Kendrick washed him. We can talk about that off mic afterwards, but Kendrick washed him. It was
okay.
Wop.
Take
We
your
washed
word
him.
for it.
What team are you cheering for in the hockey playoffs?
I grew up in Montreal, so I'm a Habs fan. So obviously they're not in the playoffs, so I'm not cheering for them. It's got to be one of our Canadian teams. So it's really painful that Vancouver and Edmonton are now in a do or die Game 7 tomorrow night.
Hey, at least it's a Canadian team.
As a Canadian team, it's not the Maple Leafs. If the Maple Leafs were in, like, Toronto is the worst as a city because it's just inundated with Leaf stuff, and so every time they get knocked out, it's the greatest day. It's like Christmas for non-Leaf fans. But if it's like, I'll say this here, and not because I'm in Alberta, if it's not Edmonton, I don't mind it being the Rangers. I'm an original 6 guy, so I wouldn't mind it being the Rangers. But if it's not going to be, I'm not going to. No,
we upset some people.
I'm sorry. And not don't be like, oh yeah, sorry. I also would cheer for Vancouver. Wink. That's
awesome. Never had this question come up before. If you were an animal, what would you be and why?
If I was an animal, I would likely be a giraffe because I could reach tall shelves.
Oh. I mean, you held on the gerb for a while there, and my brain was like, gerbil. He's going to say gerbil. I was a little worried.
Like, I kind of feel like one because I'm always kind of running in the same place over and over again.
I can see the gerbil,
right? Yeah. But no, I would say a giraffe or cheetah because cheetahs are really fast.
That's true. Yeah. And very fashionable.
They are. They got them spots, baby.
Did you play any sports as a kid?
You said your son's better at sports than you.
He is. He's my Liam is much more cerebral, and so I was more just athletic.
Right.
But I didn't. I thought, but I didn't think. Whereas Liam, he's much better with plays. He's much better. He's a much better teammate. He cheers better than I do. Yeah. He's not selfish. He is selfless to the point of like, Liam, you need to kind of like go and like get your buckets too because you're good enough. But did I play sports when I was younger? Yes, I did. I played basketball. I did track. And I played a little bit of baseball. Those are the sports I played when I was younger.
My nephew's struggling with soccer. He's 3. He just started soccer, like 3.5. And someone on his team took the ball from him and got a goal. And he's like, he beat me. He won. Like, buddy, you get to celebrate that too. He's on your team. But no, he took the ball. I'm like, oh.
No, that's a tough thing of like cheering on other people. But it's a real thing.
Yeah.
This one's not a question. It says, God bless you.
Oh, God bless you too, whoever that was. I appreciate that. And God bless us, everyone. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. Attaboy, Clarence, attaboy. That's like so like inside baseball. It's a wonderful life.
Who has no idea what we're talking about?
They haven't had an idea what we were talking about since we sat down.
I think this is maybe a clever way of trying to find out your age, but how long have you known Jeff Goring?
I have known Jeff Goring since August of 1996.
Wow.
We met at youth camp in Coburg, Ontario, Lakeshore Pentecostal Camp, and we have been brothers ever since.
So cool.
Yeah, so I've known him for, 2026 would that be 30 years?
Oh, wow.
Would that be? Yeah, so almost 30 years.
We had Jeff on the podcast once.
Yep.
He was great.
Yeah, he was our second episode, I think.
Yeah, we really like Jeff.
He plays. This can sound like it's an insult. It's not. He plays like he's not smart, and he kind of plays this sort of like this humble sort of thing. But he's one of the most gifted and talented and genuine people you'll ever meet.
Yep.
He's got a really big heart.
He won't brag on himself. He never will, and he'll be self-effacing. That's the word I'm looking for. He'll be self-effacing, to kind of like block off compliments. But he. I can say that. I'll say it to his face, say it behind his back too. He's one of the most gifted and talented.
Yes, he is.
Hospitable people you'll ever meet, and God has just done incredible things between him and Charity. They've just incredible things in their lives, and I'm privileged to be in his circle.
Amen.
We are too.
Amen. Yeah.
When were you called to ministry?
What year and how old were you? At
Yeah, no, but the thing is, I remember it, but I think my understanding of what calling into ministry has changed over time.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to look at it from a timing perspective, I would say youth camp 1997, like probably Wednesday or Thursday
the
night
year
youth
after
camp.
you met Jeff.
The year after I met Jeff, which coincidentally, or no, I would say more 1998 maybe. But I think
Around that time.
I think God has been calling us to ministry since the moment we're born. I think that there's a difference between the ministry of being a witness and making disciples versus my job is doing ministry as a vocation.
Right.
It's like, when did I apply to become a pastor? 2003, when I worked at the first church I was at, but I was already sharing my faith and that sort of stuff. So, when did I think the better question is, when did I decide to go into ministry as a career?
Sure.
I think that would be probably 1999, 2000. I was in college in Montreal, and I was failing miserably. And I'm a decent student.
Yep.
I was an honor roll student in high school. Take that, everybody. 80s for me. Was on the principal's list for behavior, not once, but grade-wise, I was great. And I got to college, and I just wasn't doing well, and I was not motivated. And then I realized that I was in the wrong profession. I was in the wrong track. I was in a literacy program, a high-end, you need to apply and write tests for, and I was not doing well. And it's because I realized that I was going on a track that wasn't what God wanted me to do. He had designs for my life to go into the vocation of ministry.
Yeah.
And so that was, I remember having the conversation with my parents in our little bathroom in Montreal, Quebec, going like, I'm failing my classes. What? There's a reason for it. It's because God's called me into ministry. What? What's that? And having to walk them through that. So that was sort of when I decided to. But I think the idea of calling is weird because we will kind of wait to not do anything until we feel what God's called us to. And it's like, God's calling you every day.
Yep.
To live for him, to serve other people, to use whatever giftings you have to serve him and serve other people. But the decision to go into ministry, I would say around 1999, 2000.
And when do you come to know the Lord?
Came to know the Lord February 14th, 1995.
Oh, Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
which
cool.
weirdly, I probably got my heart broken by a girl, and it's kind of decided to give Jesus a chance. No,
Gotta love me.
I had been going to church for a while, and I stopped going for a bit, and then I talked about this a little bit last night about going through depression in my own life.
Yeah.
In the 9th grade, and somebody in my school was like, you just need Jesus. And I went to a Christian school. So I'm inundated with Christian stuff. And I'm like, I'm not making decisions. And then there was no conference. There was no youth pastor. It was me in my bedroom, very quietly kneeling at my bed.
Wow.
Accepting Jesus into my heart.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we sometimes think like there has to be a big moment to accept him into
It was
your heart,
very nondescript. It was very no flash in the pan, no fireworks. It was just me and the peach carpet is the same now as it was when I lived in that bedroom in 1995. It's the same one.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed in there. And in that bedroom with the peach carpet and peach walls, my parents hated me, I think. Right? They didn't. They loved me, but they showed it differently. That was where I became Christian. So February 14th, 1995.
Very cool. This might be tough. What is your favorite thing about God?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
Today, I would say my favorite thing about God is being reminded that I'm a part of a community. Today, I would say that. As we've been in services together, as we've been able to hang out, especially like I don't get a chance to hang out with the students much. I get to hang out with the leaders, and I'm reminded like, oh, we haven't seen each other in a year, and we're picking up right where we left off. This is really cool, God. Thanks for that. Like, so that's what I love about God, that I'm a part of a family, apart from my family, if that makes any sense.
We were talking about that with Isaac, because like even like Isaac, Eli, and I'm sure Joseph is going to be the same tonight. It's just like once you start hearing them speaking, you're like, have you been a part of our church for like the past 10 years?
How do you know this stuff about us? Yeah. Like, how are you in the same,
exactly.
How are we grafted the same way?
Yeah,
so like
how are we on the same wavelength without having ever met before? I guess, Peabody's back. But, like it's just this cool thing that we're all on the same wavelength, and you can tell like, okay, you worship the same God that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that like, and I think there's beauty, like I don't know who wrote that question. They might have left since then. Like, if they're not answering questions, I'm out of here. I'm going to go listen to Pastor Aaron talk about other stuff.
Yeah.
But like, again, that was very inside
It's
baseball
be more
for us.
interesting
I'm glad I'm
Q&A
not
over
there.
there.
I don't want to go over there.
Yeah. That was very inside baseball for those of you who are listening to that.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's like, what do I love about God today? Because, the story of Moses being at the cleft of the rock and God saying, I can only show you this part of me, because if I show you everything, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Like there's so much about God to love. And so it'd be overwhelming to kind of list up all things. So today it's community. Tomorrow it might be my wife and my kids. The day after that might be able to sleep in my own bed. That's what I love about God. The ability to have a home, all this sort of stuff. Like, but today it's being able to be in this space with everybody else, with all of you guys and the community that he's provided for us.
Cool. We got a couple more minutes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever find out who stole your car?
No, because I'll say this: it's probably good that I don't know who stole my car, because that would just be very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I know where the car was taken, and so I have an idea of what sort of people might have taken it, and that's fine. That's fine
about
for me.
all you need to
That's all I need to know. To like, I'm not becoming Batman.
Yeah.
Swear to me, I'm Batman. Swear to me, where's my car? I'm not doing that. Like it's not that deep. It's not that deep.
I don't know.
Too bad for you. Yeah. Right? So
Just like put on a cape at night and wait in the
you
shadows.
just wait in the shadows. Like that's how Batman started. There's this weird, I know we're running out of time, but there's this weird, there's this funny TikTok or Instagram story about this person who like waits for people like they go into parking spots and they park crooked, and then Batman's like, hey, what are you doing over there? Fix your car. And then it's just beating them up for nothing. It's just the funniest thing in the room. I'm like, that's what I don't want. Justice is served. Justice is served. Swear to me.
Oh no.
There's 2 more of those, right?
Yeah. 3 here.
Okay, we got time.
We're doing all right.
Did you forgive the girl who bullied your daughter?
That's a good question. Sometimes. And other times I have to do what we did today.
Yeah.
Right? Because I was talking about this with Dale, who has been just the kindest driver, who picked me up from Regina and drove with me, meeting him as a stranger last year, who's now a friend. And we're talking about that, like how when it's your daughter, when it's your own flesh and blood, it's harder because
part of you.
It's like, but I gain nothing like going to the king going like,
oh, right, yeah.
You want to fight? Like that's like I gain like I'm going to jail first off, right? You're not allowed to park spot because you fight with that kid, right? You're right. But so I have to deal with the hurt and anger that I feel towards her for what she's done to my daughter, and so there are days where I completely forget about it, and then there's days where I see my daughter sat and I'm reminded, and I have to go like, the kid's 15 years old. They probably don't know any better. Just let it go. There's nothing you can do about it. So those sort of things. So like, so I'm not the sort of person. This is just my own working, within my own theology. I don't know if forgiveness is a one-time thing, right? Like I do think that it's an ongoing process. It's like it's working a muscle.
It totally
right?
is.
You're constantly working on it.
Because the enemy's going to keep bringing up, hey, Chris, you remember this?
Yeah.
Hey.
So
you see how this still affects you?
Yeah. Remember that kid?
Yeah.
Swear to me, right? So, figuring those pieces out. So, today I have, but that might be different if Ellie gets a weird Snapchat from somebody who's related to her, Like then it might be like, I bet we rolling up to her house. Then let's go because we know where she lives. We know where she be at. Just kidding. I'm kidding. We do know where she lives, but we're not going to roll up to her house. We're not going to do that. Yeah. But but if we did though, we come. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, final 2 questions. The last one's very, very short. I mean, I assume, but maybe not.
I'm verbose. It might not be.
So the second last, what led you into ministry?
Really, it's so simple. It's so much more longer than that. But I can say now I have no other discernible skills outside of ministry that really work towards anything in my life. I can really build for this and this alone.
It was this or nothing.
It was this or nothing, right? And I think that what I would say is what led me to it was both a excitement about serving people, and when you're 16 years old, the ability to be in front of people was really, really, really engaging. For keeping it 100, right? I get to be on the stage like that guy. That's really cool. Yeah. Now at the not so young age of whatever, it really is about discipleship.
Find out.
And I mean, it's on my Instagram. Like I posted a certain picture every year on my birthday, so it's not hard to find. But now it really is about serving people. But I think then it was the excitement of being a witness and the ability to actually talk to people. So there's a bit of both. But that's not the case now. I would rather not do the upfront stuff. I'd rather do the behind the scenes stuff now. But that's just, again, that's trial and error and growing and learning and falling and getting back up. So that's...
All right. And then really quick question, or possibly not. What's your favorite sport?
Probably basketball, then football will probably be the second
American football or?
American football. The only reason why it's not European football is because there's too many teams, too many leagues, and it's too hard to kind of transfer portal. Like I don't understand what that even means. So American football is just easier.
Nice.
That's it. Chris. She's yawning. She's like, she's done. No, I'm kidding. This
done,
poor
you guys.
child's like, why are you pointing it out to me? I'm so sorry. That was rude of me. I'm a petty guy. I told you. I'm working on it.
Chris, thanks so much for being here and coming on.
Thank you.
You have to cut the last part.
No, we're keeping it. We're keeping it. The whole thing.
Can we applaud for you?
Yes.
No, thanks for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun. And hopefully those of you who sat through this were only bored for 45 of the 60 minutes that we were talking.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right.
See
Thanks,
ya.
Chris. Bye.
See you guys.